So we're live. We have one person, right?
I see
Let me
one.
see.
I see some more.
Holy crap, we have a lot of people here. No,
Yeah,
are these people? Are
those
these
are
people who
people.
are actually in watching this right now?
These are people.
Yeah, these are people. Thank you, people, for coming. Okay, so we're going to make this more streamlined than we did last time because I was half trying to get myself on camera for some God knows reason. Today, we're going to be talking with Wendy Bounds, aka Gwendolyn Bounds, author of Not Too Late and an avid nationally ranked Spartan racer, right, Wendy?
I am.
And as we established in our last talk, you're really old. Uh,
Super old.
you're 54. I'm a very young 59. So we're talking about injuries and avoiding and recovering from injuries um, after 50. But people who are 45, Andy Leonard, you're 30 something, you're invited. Everybody who's younger is invited. So let me just say this real quick, and then we're going to get into tangible, tactical insights that I've learned from my 7 orthopedic surgeries and 47 years of weight training, for better or for worse. And Wendy, as a newer athlete, who started relatively late, thus her name of her book, Not Too Late. Some of the takeaways she has, because what she and I have sort of experienced and our takeaways and our insights are actually pretty complementary, but they don't necessarily overlap too much. Would you say that's fair, Wendy?
Yeah, I think we get to injury from different places, but now our coping mechanisms and our recommendations feel pretty in sync.
Right. And that's right. And at the end, we're going to just go into some bullet point takeaways for the audience. And I'd actually love to just right now ask you all watching, all 50 odd people or more, to also just throw into the chat some of the things you're either wondering about, like questions, but also your insights, because we'd love to crowdsource this stuff because God knows people in our age bracket or older and younger are dealing with this. So, as I mentioned, Wendy, nationally ranked Spartan racer. I come to sort of this injury avoidance, and if you have it, recovery conversation from a lifelong athlete perspective, having played soccer since I was 7. Three. So I'll just go through some of the things Wendy's been going through. Although I think she's not yet. You've not yet gone under anesthesia in your 8-year athletic life, right? Since you started
No,
racing in 2018?
my injuries stem more from anybody who's like me who got excited by the potential of exercise or very excited by a new sport and dove in head first and didn't realize you're not as elastic as you are when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
And so my injuries are many, though not under anesthesia yet, stemming from that. It's a little different from you, which is just long term wear and tear coming back
Mm.
to meet you. And I think you realizing, Paul, right, that you can't quite go at it with the same intensity, or at least you have to have a lot more prep before that intensity.
A lot more prep, which I'll get into what I have learned the hard way. And also, yeah, one of the takeaways I'll just give you guys right now, I'll talk more about later, is not learning not to ego load. And I'll explain what that is. I have a hard time with it, not because, well, some would say that maybe they think I have a huge ego. I don't think it's more like competing against other folks or in your mind with people who usually don't give a shit about, you in the gym or anywhere else in the surf lineup, what have you. Um, but I'm going to start, Wendy. Let's just start with a few statistics that ground
Yeah.
this in reality, stark reality. And the first one is that sports injuries among people 65 or older, so that's not just our age group, but a little bit older, are rising quite sharply from about 55,000 in 2012 to 93,000 in 2021. So that's a 9-year period with a 66% increase in injuries like fractures, hematomas, et cetera. And these are people who had to go to the ER. So it's not counting all the people who didn't go to an ER. So that's a lot. That's a big increase. What do you think would be? I don't necessarily have the answer to why, but what do you think?
Well, one study that I looked at, this was pretty interesting to me, showed that pickleball may be part of the culprit. No, I mean, it's a huge rise in popularity, as you know, among
Yeah,
people generally age 55, many of them 55 and older.
right,
I mean, I think more than half of participants in pickleball are actually older adults. So fast
right.
growing sport. And then there was another study last year that showed that of the sports looked at in the mix of this, golf was number 1 in terms of accounting for the most injuries, but pickleball was number 2. So I think we kinda have to look the pickleball reality in the face, Paul, and know that this could be part of it. Fractures, strains and sprains, all of those things can happen. So I
So
won't blame it all on pickleball, but a little bit.
I'll like to blame it on pickleball because pickleball is stupid. And I know I've just
Here comes
lost,
the
like,
hate. Here comes the
half my
hate.
audience. I mean, just, like, it's wiffle ball with little paddles. I don't get it. I don't get it, but I understand that I'm wrong too on this because it's like the fastest growing sport in America. But do you think it's because is pickleball because there's so many new people who aren't, who don't have sort of a background or understanding of their bodies, who are sort of just going into it?
Yeah, I mean, look, it wasn't pickleball for me. It was something, very different, obstacle course racing. But if you go into any kind of new sport and movement that's requiring you, doing your joints like this and lateral movement, back and forth
Yeah.
movement, and you haven't been doing that, you can get injured, right?
Okay,
And
right.
so I think people get excited, very naturally so, guilty, and you dive right in, but you're not quite yet ready for, especially if you go at it and then you get excited and you do it over and over and over again. So I think
Right.
that's part of it. And you and I both know from our audiences and our Substacks that more and more adults are pursuing sports later in life, and that's a great thing. Like it is, everybody knows exercise is probably the number one intervention for longevity. That is a fantastic message to get out. But then there comes some responsibility for your body, the things you have to take care of when you dive right in.
Yeah, and in fact, since you are a Wall Street Journal employee, Wendy runs the Wall Street Journal Leadership Institute, executive directs, if I have that right.
I'm one of the leaders there. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
let's leave that. But, there was a story recently in the Journal a few months ago about it was a trend story about how more people in their 40s are getting hip replacements and knee replacements. Why? Because they plan on being athletes and running on or being active on those joints into their 70s and 80s. And so, whereas before people would just be like, "Ah, I'm already 40, I'm already 50, I'm just gonna ride it out till the grave. Don't really need to replace it because I only have limited time." But now people are thinking, "No, I have 30, 40 years left. I'm gonna replace this thing and recover." And I think that's going to what you were saying earlier about, just people being active for longer, and expecting to be hard on their body in some ways, hard in quotes, for longer. Do you think
Yeah.
that's right?
Yeah, I do, and I think you and I will let's get to surgery. I have some thoughts
Yep,
about surgery. I mean, I have put off and waited having surgery, and it's probably been a good thing, but I think we should talk about that a little bit later, and
yep,
some of the
yep,
things that get us there, I'm starting to see in the comments. Russ
yep.
put in, about having IT band and front shoulder deltoid, reoccurring nagging injuries. Boy, I am with you on that one.
Me too.
So you wanna dive in a little bit about just our sort of injury history,
Yeah.
which is very wide and different, and then let's get into how we've coped in tactics.
Right. Yeah. Two quick other things just on the
Yeah.
statistics. Obviously, injury recovery slows with age. Athletes who are injured over 45 recover about 15 to 18% slower than someone who's in their 30s. And obviously, falls begin dominating the injury category after a certain age. 2 million ER related injuries from falls in, I forgot what year that was, but it's a lot, obviously.
Yeah, and
So,
they're the leading cause of injury-related death among adults over 65. I mean, let that sink in. Like, the leading cause of injury-related deaths when you're over 65. So
right.
falls
And it
plays
may
a
not
huge
just
role.
Sorry, Wendy, didn't mean to so yeah, and it may not the death part may not be related to the fall, it might be related to going to the hospital and then you get a bug or you get pneumonia or something else. So yes. And if people I'll just toss out to the folks who are here, put in your injuries that, are on your mind or in your life that you may want us to also chat about because there's a lot of them. So, do you want to just go first, Wendy, with your rundown?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, look, mine are, things that came from being excited and diving in way too fast, right? So, obstacle course racing is a sport that requires you to carry a lot of heavy things, to swing from monkey bars, to do endurance running, and I was, I was 45 when I began getting into this, and I got really excited going to the classes, to obstacle course racing classes, and I started carrying way too much weight on my farmer's carries too fast, and then I had this repetitive stress of hanging and swinging from monkey bars because I dove in so hard and fast. I hadn't been doing it since I was a kid. So I had terrible tendonitis that just sidelined me for a
Mm,
couple of months in my elbow because I went out too fast and hard. That was one example. Another one was plantar fasciitis. If anyone on this here in the Substack has ever dealt with that, you'll know how debilitating that is because if you can't move on your feet, it's pretty hard to engage in any kind of activity. So that was another one. I didn't do the little things of like shoring up the ankle muscles and keeping my feet strong. So I had some small partial tendon tears there running on trails. A lot of hamstring partial tear from overuse. So
mm.
that's I think from not
Oh, you're
using
a
my
mess.
yeah, I'm a mess, my body optimally. And then the biggest thing, and then I'll say what the good news is because this sounds like I'm a total mess, which I probably was in the beginning, is my right shoulder. There's a horrible and slightly wonderful exercise called the burpee, if anybody knows what that is, where you
Oh, yeah.
kind of go down into a push up, kick back, come back up, jump up in the air, and you have to do 30 of them as a penalty you used to when you would fail an obstacle in racing. I did so many that my shoulder socket, the cartilage is so degenerated, and there's like a loose piece there from that the doctor said I would be heading for a shoulder replacement surgery. I've been able to sort of mitigate that. So we'll come back to that. Those are some of the highlights of the things I've had to deal with. And fortunately, I've been able to rectify many and most of them, but I sure would do it differently if I were starting out. So
Mm.
again, what about you? I know you're like surgery, you're like Mr. Anesthesia.
Yeah, that's what I call myself on Friday nights at TGI Fridays. Another one for Mr. Anesthesia over here, tender, um, or surgery boy. So I had an ACL issue when I was 17 playing soccer. Like just me and this other huge kid kicked the ball at the same time, and I lost. And so I've had a bad bum left knee since 17. And I also, I'll admit this, in 1989, I don't know, what was I, 22 or 21. I was rollerblading, which was really cool at the time, along the Chicago lakefront, and I wasn't very good. And I went down this ramp, hit a rock, and I fractured my collarbone, which I don't know if you guys can see, but it's not supposed to have a bump here. Your other collarbone is supposed to be smooth. So these I'm saying this because they healed on top of each other, which means that my left shoulder is significantly shorter than my right, which made me asymmetric. So that
Mm,
when I was lifting weights since I was a teenager, and then went really heavy.
yeah.
And for a while, like your young body can be like, "Okay, dude, if you want to do this, I'll help you out." But then after, like into the late 40s, early 50s, your body starts telling you a different story. So I had tendon reattachment surgery on left shoulder. Same thing on the right. A few years later, my biceps tendon tore when I was playing with my daughter in the pool a few years ago. It just sort of felt like a potato sack being didn't hurt, but I just heard this like burlap rip. I'm like, what
Oof.
was that? So and then that started creeping up my biceps, and so that had to be and so on and so forth. And then I most recently had a meniscus on my other knee just from I've started playing tennis, so I've been pretty hard on my body in a lot of different ways, um, and so all of these with I sympathize. I'll just wrap up with this. With I think it was Will earlier who mentioned shoulders. Like massive tendinopathy in let's call the long head biceps tendon, which attaches your biceps to the top of your shoulder, like right about here and they often wake me up, at night.
Yeah.
And if I play tennis now, just the act of serving, which is a pretty whippy motion, can wreak some havoc on that. So I'm dealing with
I see pickleball in your future, Paul. I
you know
see
what?
it.
That's probably why I despise it because I see it in my future too with, like, 2 knee wraps, the headband,
It'll be
the
sweet.
custom paddleball for $300. But, so then I'm still in the gym occasionally, and, I've this maybe gets to the other part of our conversation about, you can't just keep doing what your 40-year-old body or 45-year-old body could do, the heavy squats, the like, bad form. I always thought I had good form because I started lifting weights so young and I learned a lot. But going down too far when you're doing a dumbbell press or just the act of bench pressing, which I've totally not. I've just eliminated bench press and bar squats, because they put your body in a disadvantaged position, which you can get away with, and you see it all the time. Guys and women do it at the gym, but you don't see a lot of older people, meaning people over 50 do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's sorry, it took a long time, but that was
Well,
my rundown.
you had a lot. I mean, I feel better now, actually. If misery loves company, I feel much better. I'm
Good, I'm glad I
curious,
could make you feel
you
better.
know,
Yeah,
as we segue into sort of what we've learned and what we're doing differently and what other people, and I want to hear from people I know you do in the chat might do differently. Um, I can say from myself that I think about it as eating my spinach now, even though I actually love spinach, but I have added things that I neglected and wish I had not from the beginning, like yoga and Pilates, and
yeah,
really working on small mobility movements. I just got back from a class earlier this morning called Better Backs and Balance. And it's like, I'm so used to being in a gym, learning to carry heavy things or climbing a rope or things that feel super sexy and exciting. And I was just like whimpering like a child in this
yeah,
class because all of these little muscles I've been ignoring. But I'm kind of dumb strong, right? Like I can
but
carry heavy things, but I'm not
no,
smart strong. So I'm really doubling down on the things that I have ignored, maybe don't enjoy, don't seem as sexy, but matter.
that's really interesting. Smart, I haven't heard that. I'll say dumb strong and smart strong. I think by virtue of just my, trial and error, which is massive trial and massive error, I've come out the other side to be a little bit smart strong in
Yeah.
the context in which you're using those terms because I know, like, I know what if I do this a little bit too low, like that bench press I was talking about, I'll be awake tonight,
Right.
but if I do proper form and I don't do as heavy, and that gets into the ego load part, that I'll talk about later, or soon, I'm okay. Like I can do a farmer's carry and I'll be fine. If I do I'll just give you an example. Like I wrote about recently, like the idea of ego loading and self forgiveness and a lot of other things that sort of tie together when it comes to treating your body, whether injured or not. And one of the things I started doing was those, Bulgarian split squats.
The squats, right.
And at first, I would do them with no weights, Wendy, and I'd almost fall over because I had no.
Yeah.
I'm a little top heavy, like because my chest is just so huge. No, it's just
Massive.
But, as I got better, I started doing, like, 30-pound dumbbell, so 60 pounds, and I was just like, "Wow, that was a great workout." And then for the next 7 days, I could barely walk because my butt
Right.
was so sore. So,
Yeah.
that's not quite the ego load, but you don't have ego load issues?
Well,
Take
I think I just was yeah, I think we all do. Everybody, we all who doesn't, especially when you're around other people. I mean, I think when I would go into the gym and I was with especially when I was with a bunch of people who were younger than I was, learning the techniques of the sport and just working out, you never want to seem like you're the person who can't keep up. So I think all of us face that. Ego load is not unique to you, I don't think. But what I would say I have learned to do in terms of checking my ego is I'm really careful now with increasing my weight and increasing my strength training. So always leaving 1 to 3 reps in reserve instead of like going absolutely to failure and changing just like one variable at a time, like whether it's the weight or the number of reps or the number of sets. So
Mm.
I'm really not changing everything at one time. But if I had just built up a little bit slower, if I could say one thing in the beginning and done that more carefully, I would have gotten stronger faster, and I think I would have avoided some of my early injuries. So, in addition to that being something I wish I'd done before, I'm now doing that. My trainer works me he's very careful about bringing me up in terms of load. So, um, those 2 things, eating my spinach, adding the yoga and Pilates and increasing, very carefully my strength training. Those are, 2 of a few things I'm doing. What about you?
I'm gonna go to the comments. Ed said,
Yeah.
"I have a hard time distinguishing between ego load and progressive overload." Do you have any I have maybe have a
Yeah, go ahead.
so it's a great point, Ed. So ego loads, let's just define it. Ego loading is where you're kind of like, I can do 60-pound dumbbell bench press, like I used to do that. I can do it again. Or like that high school kid next to me is squatting, 225 or deadlifting
Yeah,
275. Fuck, I can do that too.
yeah.
And that's where it's like, that's obviously stupid ego load. That should be avoided. Progressive overload, how would you define it? I think, it depends on how much you know your body. So I know, like I said before, not exactly, but pretty much how much I can do with each amount of weight.
Yeah,
For example, when there was like bench press, I usually don't need a spotter because I can do my max 1 rep set, knowing because I know exactly. I'm pretty confident I can get the bar up once, and that it won't just land on my throat.
yeah.
Um, and I may not be answering Ed's or getting to Ed's point, but what would you say?
Well, I mean, if progressive overload is really just about gradually increasing the stress you're placing
Yep.
on your muscles or your nervous system and doing this over time, you're slightly adding more weight or reps or volume, which is actually getting your muscles to adapt. So then they will grow, you'll get strength gains, which is very different from, I think, what you're describing, the ego load, where you see somebody lifting that much and you just dive right in and decide to like lift too heavy. Or me walking into a gym the first time and everybody there's walking around with 45-pound kettlebells and I think I need to be doing that too right away.
Yep.
So I think and that's what's the hardest part, particularly when you're starting out, is you don't want to seem like especially when you're adult, you don't like to be last. You don't want to like to be the worst. We do have egos, but I think keeping that in check and just progressively going up, as Ed put it up, is a much better
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. So that's well said. I guess I would add that the difference between ego load and progressive overload is ego load is when you're actually not paying attention to your body
Yeah.
and you're sort of overriding your body's, little yellow flag, like, don't go there, buddy.
Yeah.
And progressive overload tends to be when you're actually listening to your body and know it.
Russ just chimed in really, underlining what you just said about slowing down, being
Mhm.
hyper focused on each rep versus just kind of like plowing through them can make a big difference. And I
Yeah.
think that's 100% true. And if you're work, if you have, if you work, if you go to an office, I mean, I go to an office at least 3 or 4 days a week. I have a 2 hour commute each way. And so I have a very limited band to get
Mm.
my workouts done in. Um, and if I think I can't get it all in the morning before I go because it's like a longer one versus I'm gonna just break it up. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna come back and finish versus trying to just rush through it because I know. I mean, I was too stupid to know this before, but now I know that's a recipe for disaster. So that slowing down, I think, is really critical.
Okay. So I want to mention the bar squats thesis that I've recently wrote about because I think it goes to the injury part. And then I want to ask you a little bit about let's see, someone mentioned I want to get into slowing down hyper. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I wanted to ask you, Wendy, about how you would advise people to not do the things that you did, like jumping, like instead of the way that you started, where you just overloaded your body. Like, what would be the better way? But let me so bar squats. Like people are very, very protective of their barbell squats, like back squats. So you put the bar on your back, you load up with plates and you do those squats. And one of the things in this conversation about injury prevention and then dealing with injuries is that a lot of injuries don't can take time, like they accrete in your body, but you don't notice it. Like it starts slowly sort of tearing down your inside the insides of your body, but you're not going to necessarily wake up and be like, oh man, something's injured
Mm. Yep,
until that 30th time or that sixth time or whatever. And
yep,
I find bar squats to be in that category because I can still do heavy bar squats, and I was doing them, but every time I did them, the next day, like I was creaky getting out of bed, and my QL, which is like the lower left quadrant or quadrant of my back, would just be like, something's not right. And it was such a strong correlation, but I still
yeah.
did the bar squats because I liked having the muscle, the quads, and the glute activation, as they say. But I was still getting, like, back spasms every year and a half, like the debilitating, you're on the floor, eating crackers with a glass of water for 3 hours because you can't move. And so I stopped doing the bar squats. Lo and behold, I started doing, yoga-like moves, and that went away. So, I'm just saying, I don't know if you've had this experience or other folks here in the chat could let us know, but like the idea that you're kind of hurting your body a little bit, but it's invisible, and then you're 50 something or whatever, and
Yeah.
then boom, it happens. Does that happen to you?
Well, that's really what happened with burpees for me, right? Like, in some ways, a burpee is an incredibly powerful movement that can get your heart rate up and work your body in all sorts of ways. But if you do them to excess the way I was doing for so long, that's when I ended up with the shoulder issue. So I think it cuts
Mhm.
to moderation, and look, it has also forced me to have to become better at my obstacle work so I don't fail obstacles, right? So I don't have to do as many burpees. So I think that's where I would look at that as just where is the moderation of something that you love? And, we're very lucky now that we have just, AI can help us figure that out. Like I could ask,
Uh-oh,
one
you
of the
had to bring up
models.
AI. Yep.
Yeah, but seriously, like, I could say, I'm doing X hundred burpees, every 6 months, like, is that gonna what's that gonna do? And it would tell me. Now whether I listened or not is up to me, but I think, that's where I would come down on that. I think one of the other things that I would be far more judicious about and would say for anybody, doesn't matter whether you're like you, Paul, and you've been an athlete your whole life or you're new to it like I am, but things like, your feet, taking care of your feet. I mean, I think we don't realize how much strain and stress we put on our feet. I'm actually gonna pop a link in the chat here to a, uh, piece I wrote on my Substack about this, but, this little ball right here. I live and die by this little ball right now on my feet. I roll my feet on it in the morning, at night. I wasn't doing this, and that's when I got plantar fasciitis, and I was sidelined, and I was in PT for about
Mm,
6 months for it.
mm.
So that just taking care of that, even though it doesn't feel like you're working out when you're doing it, it's a really important thing to think about. Do you have anything like that along the lines of feet that you would add of the stuff that's not like, "Look at me lifting this big heavy thing."
No, I just stick to look at me lifting this big heavy thing. That's my comfort zone. No, so the soccer player, when I was 20, I rolled my ankle in practice, and it was like my ankle was the size of a massive grapefruit. And it hurt, and I don't think I had health insurance at the time, so I was just like, I'm not going to the doctor. I just limped it off for 2 weeks. But the problem is, I think I strained a ligament. At least that's what AI told me. And I'd like to get back to your AI comment, but ever since then, I've had like if I do something like when I started playing tennis 2 years ago, actually, my left ankle, man, I would hobble home from the tennis courts,
Yeah,
and my right ankle's fine, but I think, it was that reactivation so, and everything starts, as you know, from your feet up. Like,
right.
you can sit around and do like preacher curls and other stuff, but if you want to be full body uh, in shape, especially, be able to be ambulatory and strong, you have to build from the ground up, I think.
Yeah,
Um, and so it was really important to reteach. It was almost like reteaching my ankles and all the small muscles in your ankles and your knees. to become strong. And that's why, just to tie it back to the bar squats thesis, I stopped doing a lot of bilateral leg work because I started doing unilateral or single leg work, which then recruited all those muscles that were kind of getting away with not showing up enough by, when I did bilateral stuff, because the things that were strong got stronger and the things that were weak kind of got weaker. But that you don't get away with that with Bulgarian split squats or,
No.
single leg RDLs or Romanian deadlifts or lunges, body weight
Yeah. Yeah.
lunges. So, what about you? Do you do single leg stuff too, or do you
I
stick
do.
with?
I mean, I've worked both on just to wrap on feet. I mean, there's a bunch of, it's not that expensive to work on feet and ankles. And there are some, I mean, I list in my story, there's some I use these pretty cheap tools like balance boards where I am working on my ankle rotation. Every Sunday is ankle and feet day, or standing on balance pads. But so that's really, again, keep starting from the ground up, literally of that kind of maintenance. But I love that you brought up single leg movement because that is another one where I didn't think about that in early days, and I wish I had because it would have improved just everything from my balance to triggering the use of muscles that I need to work and activating them in different ways. Uh, I would add to that lateral movement. This is something I have become really religious about. I'm popping a link in the chat for about lateral movement, become very religious about lateral movement because we don't move always in
Yeah,
like this, and it
absolutely.
talked about falls in the beginning. A fall is you get off balance, you go to one side, your body's not used to doing that. Even if you're just like stepping in a pothole or you're stepping off a curb, and so, this just including lateral movement and all sorts of different, whether it's lunge work or bouncing off a Bosu ball, or just kind of like, side to side movement with in a lateral way. I build that in. Do you include that now in your workout?
Lateral, I do. No. So the honest answer is I don't do it as much lateral. I started doing a little bit of Cossack squats, and when I so I live about a mile and a half from the Pacific Ocean, and I'll go to the beach and do some beach sprints, which
Mhm.
is like it's great for you, and it's just harder than hell. So
It is
it's
hard.
hard to do it, but I'll do like lunges in the loose sand, forward and then side lunges.
Right.
And, I mean, it's painful, like, but they really do work, and boy, like, you wake up for the next couple days and you know exactly what muscles you've worked, so I am totally in agreement with you. When I do these 3-minute, Workout Wednesday videos that I post on Substack Notes, Wendy, a lot of them, I mean, the whole idea is that you can do little mini workouts at home in your street clothes. You don't need a gym or even weights. But I try to really emphasize and think about, like you said, multi-plane, compound movements, because the gym can tend to be sort of like up, down, backwards, forwards with the weights that you're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah.
And life is, as you said, is not like that. So the other thing, the prevention thing we're just going to get into in a minute. One thing I've written about is like move your body like it's 1899. Meaning, our grandparents or great grandparents were mending fences or milking cows or hauling dirt in a wheelbarrow or whatever it may be, but they were doing all these asymmetric movements, like you said,
Mhm.
that, and nowadays we work at the gym and we're so regimented often that if you step off the curb, to your point, like you throw your back out. Like, what's that about? I was just at the gym. I'm a gym rat. So that's my message, is like multifunction, multi-plane movements which Pilates and yoga, which I don't do that often, but I do a version of the stretches every morning and night, which I think is one of the insights I have. Do you want to get to those, or should we talk about something else in the
Well, I
meanwhile?
just wanna add one thing because I think this is a simple thing anybody can do anywhere, and that I have now incorporated, particularly after I finished running, which is retro walking, walking backward. So
Oh,
particularly up a hill, I have found this, my trainer, he added this into my routine. At first I was like, "What?" And I realized after I did it, it's incredible. So it improves like your body's sort of sense of itself in space. So it challenges your muscles and movements in novel ways, which, as we were just talking about, can improve coordination and help prevent a fall if you're thrown off kilter.
Mhm.
Can potentially help joint and knee pain. It did for me for sure.
Really?
Um, and it gets your brain, like from a cognitive standpoint, Paul, it gets your brain off autopilot. Like when you're running, you can just go into a zone. You're walking
Mhm.
backward, you're not. And so I just think having that little like intense, like cognitive stimulation is pretty great. So retro walking for me is something that anybody can do anywhere, just even adding 5 minutes of it, particularly on a hill, or you can do it on a treadmill. I'll pop a link in the chat here,
I was
is
gonna ask how long you're doing it and how long it takes. I mean, how does it what's the physiology of in a minute or so? Like, can you of it helping your knee, your
it
knees?
it what how is it helping your knee?
Yeah, like, what does that do to your knees? I just don't have
Yeah,
no idea.
it's sort of it requires this toe walking backward requires more of a toe heel movement, which
Mhm,
engages the quadriceps, which can then
mhm.
absorb impact. It's also a novel movement. So, like, if walking forward hurts, then something different might not. And the other thing it can do, and you'll feel this if you try it, is increase the range of motion in your hip flexors. So,
Yeah.
look, the research is far from definitive on this. I am not remotely suggesting this as a panacea or something that's a cure all for pain,
Mhm,
but it's
mhm.
certainly not gonna hurt unless, of course, you fall down, so be very careful. But and it could I mean, I found it did help with my some of my persisting, like, knee twinges.
Huh. So hip mobility, you mentioned a really big deal. Like I can feel my hips getting sort of it feels like the house is getting smaller, in terms of
Yeah.
like my hip mobility as time goes on. Some of that may be because I'm Romanian, I should say, Bulgarian split squats really put a load on your hips, and if I have early onset arthritis or osteoarthritis, that can certainly exacerbate it. But should we, we're in the
Yeah.
last 10 minutes here because we're
Yep.
going to wrap up it in about 10 minutes, folks. Because I have a Mayo Clinic health and wellness coaching class to get to. Should we talk about some of the insights and major takeaways that we've had and also solicit one more time our awesome audience? 107 people. That's really great.
Yeah.
Peter was saying I was doing foot and ankle exercises from the post. Wendy linked several times a week for that several weeks before my last marathon. So, Wendy, good job. You've helped Peter in the process.
Peter's a star. Peter's a rock star. He did
Um,
that marathon.
yeah.
So,
So,
yeah,
Wendy,
go
let's
for it.
talk about our like top takeaways from what we've learned over time. Why don't you start?
Yeah. I mean, look, overall, from just a conceptual standpoint, I have learned to think of my body kinda like a book of matches. I'm doing everything I can to keep all those matches nice and calm and unlit. So the
Oh,
things that we talked about, not trying to climb Everest on day 1, right? Right? Checking that ego at the door,
mhm,
being very well-rounded in activity, and watching for overuse. So in my case now, adding things like Pilates or yoga, uh, and again, not pounding out dumbly, hundreds of
mhm,
burpees every, few months. And then taking care of the unglamorous body parts like the feet. So that to me is kind of in the prevention bucket. The second thing I would say is when something does become a flame, if one of those little matches gets struck, to be religious about paying attention to it, right? There's this thing called niggles, right, that you get in sports, which you're not sure if it's just a kind of little irritation for the day
mhm.
or if it's real, and could lead to injury. I pay attention to that. I want to put that match out before it spreads to the rest of the pack. So I take it pretty seriously now and back off because 1 or 2 months off of doing something is a lot better than 6 months or ending up under anesthesia, which I know, again, you're the you're the expert in.
Yeah.
Speaking of surgery, like, I thought I was headed for a shoulder replacement surgery a year and a half ago because I could barely get my arm over my head. I sure couldn't hang from anything anymore. And I went to a really good surgeon at Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, and he talked me out of it. He was like, "You could be headed for it one day, but if you do these things, i.e.,
Mhm.
no longer do bench presses on the floor, right? So I'm not on a bench, I'm lying on the floor so I can't hyperextend my
Yeah.
shoulders backward. Don't do the burpees. Ease back into hanging by putting my feet on a box. And if I can do those, he's like, you may not need it for a while. And I spent the last year and a half doing that, skipping obstacles and races and taking penalties and penalty loops instead, just to protect my shoulder. And I'm now back to being able to do it and to hang again. So I probably will need it down the road, but I think if you do get a fire, I would say be mindful before you rush into surgery. So that would be
Yeah.
kind of my framing of it. Paul, what about you?
Well, you used a visual. I'm gonna show you a visual. Hang. So my visual's a little bit bigger, but it's this thing, which everyone will know as a foam roller. Man, I use this. I use this every morning and every night. And if sometimes I skip the morning because taking my daughter to school. But if I don't use this, first of all, foam rolling, 80% of your body is fascia.
Yeah.
So you can look it up, but fascia is all the stuff that's sort of filling in your body between the tendons and the muscles and the organs and the blah, blah, blah. And this rolls out my back and my legs and my ankles. So to the foot conversation, I will roll out my glutes, my lower back, my upper back. I'd actually link to a Michaela Schifrin workout video. She's the amazing Olympic
Yeah.
skier. Um, and she's doing multiple sets of just like leveraging her leg and just doing little motions. It look boring, but it really helps maintain. So I was told by my doctor of osteopath because I kept having like this radiating pain in my like upper, like where my spine meets my butt, and SI joint. Sacroiliac joint was out of place and it's just
Yeah.
painful and it won't go away. And so my DO would adjust me, but she said, dude, instead of just going into the gym and starting, foam roll and get your body warm and then do it foam roll after also. And those two things, is just one of my insights slash takeaways is you got to warm up your body now. You can't just get away with your 35-year-old cold open, as they say. And the foam roller. People get sick of me talking about it, but it's the best $24 pound for pound. It's like more valuable than uh, fentanyl or gold or whatever the proper term the thing would be. So that's my first one.
Dynamic warm-ups, did you mention that? Do you do a dynamic warm-up in addition to the foam rolling? Did you say that?
No, I didn't say that because I don't really do that. Should
Okay.
I?
Well, I don't know, but I do it versus just static stretching. I love the foam roller too. Your passion for the foam roller, I understand and feel your passion. And I also, instead of just doing static stretching, doing dynamic warm ups where you're actually moving. Both of us can try and put a link in when we write our posts up about this. I find that's much better than just getting out cold, like you're saying, and going into static stretching, which could
Mhm,
hurt something.
mhm. We're gonna wrap up in a couple minutes here, so I'll do one last call out to our amazing audience of 108 people.
Look
If
at
you have any.
Cynthia. Look at, if you can see that comment, she's 85, teaching a small class at her condo, and she's all these exercises we're talking about, they're doing them, and I just think she's proving, like, why you and I are even in this, right? It's like, you can do this, and you can make huge strides even up and through your 80s. I've just gotten both my parents, they're 81 and 82. They're in the gym, they have trainers, and I think it's like that's that marginal decade and keeping them doing the things they
Yeah.
love.
I like that Cindy also called herself an oldie. Um, keeping it real, Cynthia. Um, okay, so in the last couple minutes here, do you have any other major insights, takeaways, advice for us all? I'm going to mention bar hangs in a moment, but over to you, Wendy.
Yeah, I like, let's end on bar hangs because I am such a believer in bar hangs for grip strength, and how and I think somebody who was, can't remember how old she was, I think she was 81, just set the world record for her age in, bar hangs and why grip strength is just such an important predictor of longevity, in general. You may be coming at it from a different vantage point, but I love bar hangs, so please end on bar hangs.
Okay, well, I mean, how long did I read that about that lady, but it was some insane amount of time. Like,
Like 3 minutes, yeah.
no, 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 no.
No, hold on, I'll find
She
it.
was like an hour
While
and
you're
a half.
talking, I'll find it.
I mean, it was over an hour or something like
No, no,
that.
no, no, no. She wait, hold on. I'll tell you
No?
how much. No, she did 3
Oh, maybe
minutes. I no, no. Where do you're reading the wrong thing. 3 wait, hold on.
yeah,
3:03,
that's
3
what I'm
minutes.
just saying, an hour would be or hour would
Yeah, an
be
hour. I don't know where that's all right. I don't know where you're getting your news. Come to the Wall
yeah,
Street Journal.
well, I
Okay,
usually get it from
there's
Wall
the
Street
story
Journal.
about her right there.
Okay, so it was 3 minutes?
3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Yeah, okay, that's it may not sound like much, but if
That's a
you like,
lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, I went down recently to I have a bar with some rings on it in my garage, which is below me, and was like, "Can I do 2 minutes?" So I imagined I made it to 2 minutes, but barely, and my forearms are sore for the next 3 days. I find there's a lot of I just read things and I hear things from, like, people who have shoulder problems about the beauty of bar hangs, and so I have one, again, downstairs. If you just get one of those cheap pull-up bars that you put in the door jamb, those work too, but just being able to hang with your body weight, so you may need to, like, raise your feet off the ground, and I find that I had tennis elbow, maybe similar to what you had had, and the only thing that would help is a bar hang. And then, because of my shoulder issues, I also do that. I try to do one arm bar hang, and I can do it for about 7 or 8 seconds before it just starts feeling like my body's going to tear apart. But that also feels good. Do you ever do the one arm?
Yeah, I go back and forth because mostly because that's a movement you need to be able to do when you're, in, on monkey bars or some of the obstacles, so swinging from one ring
Yeah.
to another ring, you have
No.
to be careful and work up to it, but I
Yeah.
think you just described the right ways to work up with it. Put a box in front of you, right? And you can hang and put your feet on that box to offset the load in the beginning.
Yeah. 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 So I think like it's such an easy win, the bar hangs. If you can manage to find a bar to hang on, a tree limb, whatever it may
Yeah,
be, just do it. We're doing it regularly. There's something about letting gravity also decompress your
spine.
lower spine. Like when
Uh,
my back is a little. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, I'm sorry. Go finish, and I'm gonna answer Cynthia's question.
When my back is a little, because I've been sitting on my ass writing a shitty post that, makes 50 people unsubscribe from my Substack. Like I sit in my chair a lot, and that is just the worst thing to do. It's like, dude, get up every 30 minutes like your Apple Watch tells you to. It's really beneficial. But when I don't, my hip flexors and everything gets really wonky, and I'm put myself in danger of a lower, like a back spasm. So letting gravity kind of just pull my spine things apart, whatever they're called, I can't think of the word, that really helps.
Yeah, I love that. I think those are you just fleshed out why bar hangs are such a good thing for anyone. And I was typing this answer into the chat, but she asked the right question. Cynthia's like, if you don't have a bar at home, or if you're not, where do you get one? If you're not at the gym, I went to playgrounds at the local elementary school, and I use the playgrounds for free. I just got over myself feeling silly, being there. I mean, the kids kind of mocked me a little bit in the beginning, which is a chapter in my book. But nonetheless, I think you can just go to a playground and hang from a bar there. And there's, usually a playground somewhere nearby.
Yeah, I just, I built one with 1-inch plumbing pipe with, the elbows, and then built the feet and put sandbags down so it was stable, and that's served me for years. So,
Yeah.
all right, so Wendy, any last thoughts before we wrap it?
Well, I think this is a really important topic, and I think we'll put posts on our each of our Substack about this, and if people have other additions they want to add in the comments, they can, because I think this is a conversation that continues. And the good news is not only do we have more information than ever before about this, but the surgeries are like if you do get to the point of surgeries, they're getting better. I mean, you're a living proof of the fact that you can get a surgery now and it's not going to derail you from doing all the things you love,
Yeah.
and that's we're lucky in that respect versus 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned surgery, we didn't talk about, which is fine, but it's that one thing I've found because I had two surgeries last year is that what the surgeons never tell you is how difficult it is to be inactive during those weeks or months after you've had surgery, especially like the shoulder where
Yeah.
you can't even walk fast. because it's so, it just needs TLC. And the mental strain of it's not even a strain, the mental challenge, like the dark cloud that happens to a lot of athletes of, whether you're professional or whether you're just sort of used to being in motion like I am and you are. So we maybe there's another topic to write about, but or to talk about, Wendy. But you haven't been through surgery, but the post op mental struggle of inactivity, and you start losing your mind in some ways because you're so used to just needing the gym or whatever workout you do to clear your mind, to
Yeah.
de-stress, and you can't de-stress, and then it accrues. So, anyway, I
I
just wanted to mention that.
I think it's a great topic, and, I'm making a note for us to talk about it. The one little thing I'll add on there is not having been through surgery, but I was down very hard with COVID when COVID first came out and before there were vaccines and we knew what it was. And
Mhm.
I went from running 13 miles to I couldn't even get out of my bed. And so I was very frustrated in that. I actually ended up working on breath work. I read a book called Breath by James Nestor.
You're
And
the
I
second person to mention that. Sorry. So I gotta read this. So go on.
Yeah, it's a
Sorry.
great book, but I had to, like, turn all my energy and focus on from the physical to the learning something about the breath, and that was good for me in a different way. So I think let's put a pin in that, and maybe in the next chat, we can talk about some of these David's read the book. Great, thanks, David. Some of the cognitive things you can do or things when you're down that you could still feel like you're working on and
Yeah.
improving your health.
Yeah. Apparently, there's something about breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth specifically, not
Oh,
just
yeah,
through your
very much
nose
so.
only,
We can go
which
down
is
a whole rabbit hole on it.
okay. Let's do so that maybe we'll do our next live on breathing.
Yeah, maybe if we're still breathing, and let's hope we are.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wendy, thanks for being here, and thanks to our long list of guests and live chatters and the people who are in the community. We really appreciate you being here and your contribution. So hope you enjoyed it.
yeah, thank you. I'm jotting down that 5.5 app right now, Russ. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Paul, for hosting.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.